Indeed, Pranesh, thanks indeed. Yes, viewers, it's promising to be once again a busy week. It started off on the same combative note as last week. Viewers, today, a great army of black kurta-clad Congress members descended upon the streets and the well of the Lok Sabha and Parliament to rail against the conviction of Rahul Gandhi in a defamation case. At one point, viewers, Congress MPs even tore papers and flung them at the speaker. There you can see those pictures on your screens, and you can see all those placards and obviously important official papers being ripped up and then thrown at the lectern behind which the speaker sits. All that time, repeated chants rang out inside the House, and the disruptions, as you know, have continued. Watch how the chair was disrespected inside the Temple of Democracy by Congress Party MPs, who ironically say that they're crusading for democracy. Outside, Congress President led the march of opposition MPs claiming that Rahul's conviction by a Gujarat court for comments he made in Karnataka shows how the state machinery has been misused to silence a dissenter. Across the nation, Congress cadre clashed with police for forcing them to use cannons or affect detentions to tame the protesters. You can see all those visuals. None of these, viewers, are popular protests. These are not ordinary public galvanizing, coming together to protest. These are all Congress cadre. This remains very much, viewers, confined to the Congress party, these protests. The Congress top brass kept on implying that Rahul Gandhi was a victim of a major conspiracy. And this they have been saying, viewers, over the last 4 days. Listen in.
डेमोक्रेसी को मोदी जी एक एक करके खत्म कर रहे हैं। जो लोग झुकते नहीं, उनको झुकाने के लिए ईडी का इस्तेमाल, सीबीआई का इस्तेमाल उन्होंने किया और कर रहे हैं भी। गुजरात में, सूरत में केस डालते हो। अरे the offense occurred at Kolar in Karnataka, but you have registered the case in Surat, outside the jurisdiction, and Gujarat. Kyun? Because you wanted the favorable government. There is a Gujarat government, and you want to use the police. You want to use, I can't say judiciary, but you want to use for your purpose.
Soon after, the BJP spun around and asked why the Congress, if it believes the court has overreached, hasn't yet filed an appeal in a higher court of law. Remember, till now, Rahul Gandhi's legal counsel hasn't moved the appellate court. Viewers.
Now a case in a court of law is fought on merits and evidence. If you read the judgment says that the person concerned did not defend himself. Which leads me to assume two things. That either somebody within his political organization just did not want to defend him, knowing what the courts are capable of under the law. Or Rahul Gandhi thought he's above the law.
प्रमोद तिवारी जी ने बयान दिया हाल में ही, जिसमें उनके शब्द थे राहुल गांधी के परिवार के लिए कानून अलग होना चाहिए, और ये भी कहते हैं सेंटेंस में अलग होना चाहिए, कन्विक्शन में नहीं। एक परिवार के लिए इस देश में कैसे अलग कानून मांगते हैं, मैं समझता हूं इससे बड़ा घोर अपमान भारत के कानून का और कानून व्यवस्था का नहीं हो सकता है।
कोर्ट जब उन्हें फैसला सुनाता है, सजा देता है, तब वो कहते हैं कि कोर्ट उनके खिलाफ काम कर रहा है। प्रमोद तिवारी तो अलग कानून की मांग करते हैं कि गांधी परिवार को सजा देने के लिए एक अलग कानून होना चाहिए जो उनके परिवार के रुतबे और पृष्ठभूमि को देखकर सजा तय करे। यह भी दिखाता है कि वो अपने आप को लोकतंत्र, देश की व्यवस्थाओं के ऊपर समझते हैं।
Well, you've heard both sides, viewers. You've heard Mr. Kharge, you've heard Smriti Irani, Shahzad Poonawala. Listen in now to what the court said. The court made the following observations when it handed out the conviction to Rahul Gandhi, and this is, of course, just a summary of the court's observations. It said that no change in conduct of accused despite Supreme Court warnings. So it was referring to another case, viewers. The accused in his speech designated Shri Narendra Modi as a thief, compared him to financial criminals who have hurt the Indian government. Nirav Modi, Lalit Modi could have limited speech to these people. The accused has committed a crime and is a member of parliament. If he isn't punished, it would send a wrong message to our society. That's what in sum the court said, viewers. Obviously, it's a detailed judgment, but this is one part of its reasoning. The court's reasoning has, of course, been disregarded by the Congress that has been pushing a narrative of its own. Let's square the narrative off against some of the facts that we know. The first point the Congress has made is that the court has singled out Rahul Gandhi, handed him an unprecedented punishment. The fact is that courts in Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka have, under BJP rule, convicted BJP MLAs also. So this is not the court acting with bias. At least that particular fact puts that to rest. Let's look at some of the other claims that the Congress has made. It has said that the court has overreached. The fact is that the Surat court repeatedly asked Rahul if he would like to apologize. And as you know, viewers, some others who have been accused of defamation, criminal defamation at that, have chosen to apologize. The other thing that the Congress says is that it's penalized for raising Adani issue, that the government, the machinery of the state is going after Rahul Gandhi for asking uncomfortable questions of Mr. Modi about his alleged links to Mr. Adani. The fact is that the case dates back to 2019, much before the Adani issue was raised substantively by the Congress party. The other claim that the Congress makes, it is a narrative that it's driving, is that, and this is what Rahul Gandhi himself says, that he's not Savarkar and that he won't apologize. The fact is that Congress leaders have backtracked in court. They've apologized after past defamation cases. We've had Manish Tiwari, we've had Jairam Ramesh, we've had other leaders from other political parties like Arvind Kejriwal who've gone and apologized. But it appears that Rahul Gandhi has not done so and did not want to do so. The other fact that comes to mind, viewers, is again in the context of another claim, that the court judgment is suspect. Again, a Gujarat angle was pointed out. But viewers, the fact is that Rahul Gandhi, in a similar case, where again he made comments against the Modi community, as it were, well, he hasn't got any relief by the Jharkhand High Court either. He had called upon that court to quash the proceedings there, but it didn't. The Congress also claims that the BJP is using defamation cases to browbeat Rahul Gandhi. Well, Congress has also filed defamation cases, or at least their netas have filed defamation cases against their opponents, and other opposition parties have done so. So this is stock in trade, really, viewers. I'm not a fan of criminal defamation, and I believe that criminal defamation should be struck off, quite frankly. But that's not really what we're debating tonight, and I want to open up with some very basic questions. We've got some highly regarded lawyers on our panel, and we've got a representative each from the Congress and the BJP. Let me begin with former ASG and senior advocate of the Supreme Court, Mr. Vikas Singh. Mr. Vikas Singh, thank you for joining us this evening. It's been obviously a very fraught time. Lots of allegations, counter allegations are being made, have been made. But I want to ask you, do you believe Rahul Gandhi has a strong case to successfully appeal against his conviction for criminal defamation and either have the verdict overturned or the conviction stayed? What's your assessment?
Well, there are 2 points on this. Firstly, according to me, the Representation of People's Act does not disqualify Rahul Gandhi because the entire criminal jurisprudence has either a 2-year sentence, limit of 2-year sentence with certain consequences, or above 2-year sentence with some other consequences. For instance, up to 2 years, including 2 years, it is bailable and non-cognizable. The moment it becomes 3 years, it is cognizable and non-bailable. So the intent of the Representation of People's Act was always to, have minor offences up to 2 years, including 2 years, to be excluded from disqualification. Now, it's not very happily worded. And if anybody were to go to court, immediately this clarification can come. That is one. Secondly, as far as his conviction is concerned, he has to, of course, go and appeal because there is no way that he can save himself from the imprisonment if he doesn't file his appeal within 30 days, because that's the only grace period given to him for suspending the sentence in the conviction order. And according to me, this kind of a sentence of 2 years is a little, harsh, because even if confirmed cases of defamation, normally 6 months to 1 year is the normal sentence. So to give a 2-year sentence, and secondly, in our country where we, take pride in free speech and where free speech has been made a fundamental right, I feel that whatever he may have said is definitely not appropriate. I mean, nobody can justify what he said. But nevertheless, to exalt it to the status of a criminal wrong, according to me, is not correct. So that way also, he will get relief in the higher court, and this conviction on filing the appeal will have to be stayed and not only sentence suspended, because if he doesn't get relief in the other interpretation matter, he will require a conviction being stayed for the for his membership to the parliament to revive. And then, of course, when the matter is finally heard, I'm sure he will also get relief in this matter.
Well, let me ask you, Mr. Singh, mens rea is key to criminal defamation. There needs to be malice. Do Rahul Gandhi's comments indicate that there was malice against an entire community in what he said? I mean, you said that they're indefensible remarks, but do they constitute a crime under mens rea?
So I started off by saying that what he said was definitely inappropriate. I'm not saying it was appropriate at all. But in a country where people have gotten away with, far greater degree of, slander, and, you have to be a little thick-skinned, I feel. So to say that this amounts to a criminal offense, according to me, is, not very, very, justified. At the same time, I should not be understood as saying that I'm even remotely accepting what he said, or affirming what he said, or justifying what he said, because I definitely feel that what he said was definitely not appropriate, and it is hardly. But if you recall, even his run-up to the election campaign, he had all the time said, Prime Minister, whatever he had to say, and that actually cost him dearly at the election. So according to me, it's actually politically also very wrong, apart from being wrong otherwise also, for him to say something like this. But a wrong statement to be said to be criminal defamation, according to me, is definitely, has to be something more than that. And in this case, the way he, made that statement also, he didn't say straight away Modi. He named, I believe, 2 Modis, and then he said. So I feel that it can't be given the status of a criminal wrong under the IPC.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, Mr. Singh. I know that you have to go, so let's just open this up. We have with us Karuna Nandi, an advocate from the Supreme Court, Ishkaran Bhandari, another advocate practicing in the Supreme Court. We have Tehseen Poonawala, who's representing the political side of this debate, and Sanju Verma, national spokesperson of the BJP. Let me come out to you straight, Karuna Nandi. Look, the Congress seems to be implying that this is a matter where the courts have overreached by delivering a maximum sentence of 2 years for a crime of defamation. Do you believe, therefore, the court has set a sort of an extreme precedent? And is it justified?
You know, I think it's very important to remember that courts, as you quite correctly pointed out, that when a court makes a decision and it goes against a particular entity, a political entity, then tomorrow it could go against another political entity, right? And so we have seen over decades and decades that you have the weaponization of prosecution by various states and, also by the center. The CBI has memorably been called the cage parrot on occasion. But then fortunes flip. And so when there is, when the prosecution goes for the highest sentence, then, and bad precedent bites everyone. So when the Subramaniam Swamy case was heard by the Supreme Court, the case that looked at getting rid of the law, and I was before a different bench on the same issue because our client was, the Chief Justice was conflicted out of our case. So our same case was sent to another judge. But the thing is that the variety of people there before the court, Rahul, was to be noted. There was Rahul Gandhi, there was Rajdeep Sardesai, there was the Editors Guild, I think, and then there was Subramaniam Swamy. So free speech is something that is very important. One is not saying that free speech must include falsehood, but one is saying that criminal defamation is something that came from the Star Chamber in England, where people used to duel, for honor. And in such a situation where now we are no longer in that sort of situation, to retain a crime which has such a massive chilling effect and is so blatantly disproportionate in the rough and tumble of politics, and to not recognize that political speech has a different threshold, particularly when you are speaking of governmental acts and public persons who are in politics, then you're absolutely right. It's a very bad precedent.
Okay, so let me ask you.
As you correctly said, the law should go. The law shouldn't be in there in the first place.
Okay, so let's just, look, we're not attributing motives, of course, to the court, but we seem to suggest that.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, so we seem to suggest that, look, perhaps it hasn't really taken into context political speech and how it sort of plays out in the hot and heavy,
but not just this court.
Election.
I don't even know if it was argued before this court, frankly.
Right. Okay.
But I'm saying that the jurisprudence in general surrounding criminal defamation needs to, at the very least, be limited and whittled away. Okay. Which, for example, there are judgments in the Sandhya Ravi Shankar case.
I agree with you. I'm not in favor of criminal defamation. Journalists are often pulled before various courts by political parties on the slightest pretext, and it does have a chilling effect. But let me just quickly ask you this, because it's not just the BJP, but if you really look through the records of this court in this particular case, Rahul Gandhi was asked to apologize for his remarks on a number of occasions. And it's not as if people haven't in the past. I remember Sanjay Nirupam filed a case against Vinod Rai, and Vinod Rai then apologized. So, you've had a Congress personality going after the CAG. You've also had DK Shivkumar, another Congress personality who's filed a defamation case against a BJP MLA. And again, Arvind Kejriwal, Jaitley, this, that, the other. Apologies have come. Jairam Ramesh apologized. Manish Tiwari sort of came out and apologized. Rahul Gandhi was asked, and do you believe his refusal to do so only strengthened the case against him?
I think that there's a way in which when there is a particular, when a blunderbuss is shown to you, right? The law on criminal defamation. And when you feel that you have something to say there, maybe you didn't express it in an ideal way, but you do have something to say, then to retract it and take it all back may not be palatable. And to wish for and to want and to argue for a law, because after all, these are our courts. This is our democracy, right? All of us. And to attempt to, through the system, demonstrate that the law can address nuances, should and can address nuanced situations, to make that attempt is not wrong. And as Mr. Vikas Singh said quite correctly, I think that in appeal, it's unlikely, I think, that the 2-year sentence will be upheld.
Okay.
Right? And the process is in the punishment also, right? Because
that's true.
If it is that 2 years and, over 2 years, and the man has been disqualified from entering parliament, then
one gets that.
Just the fact of adjudication.
Obviously, it all depends on whether in 30 days Rahul Gandhi and his counsels go up in appeal. Now, let's open this up because I want to bring in Ishkaran Bhandari. Mr. Bhandari, just for a few moments, set aside the arguments about whether we should even have provision like criminal defamation on the books. Let's just talk a little bit about this case because obviously the question is, why hasn't the Congress party gone up in appeal? If it thinks that, look, it has a strong case, why hasn't it done so? So I'm asking you, is there a strong basis to prove that Rahul Gandhi had a criminal intention to malign the entire Modi community in India and therefore perhaps the Congress party is not very confident and that's why we haven't seen an appeal? I mean, we've seen the Congress going up in appeal in very quickly in other cases concerning their leaders, but here it's almost been 100 hours.
Rahul, why the question that they have not gone in appeal now? In the criminal law, the minute they were issued summons, habitually all counsels advise people, and you as a journalist must have faced so many cases because of your speech. The first thing you do is you challenge the summons in a superior. You know that, right?
Luckily.
So the first thing, you would be an expert. So the first thing you do is you challenge the summons. You challenge the summons. Yeah. Either before the Sessions Court or before the High Court or before the Supreme Court. That is stage one. Then comes a stage two, when the notice is framed against you, or in simple language, if you say in other cases, a charge is framed against you. So then you challenge it in Sessions Court, High Court, Supreme Court. Now, we cannot advise Congress on what the Congress should have done or the lawyer should have done. But you are talking about an appeal against the final order. Yeah. I am saying there were enough stages to appeal before it if they were confident of their case and they have a battery of lawyers. So that is one question mark we must have. Second aspect, I would like to say 10 seconds on this. On the philosophical debate of whether a law should be there or should not be there. That's a philosophical debate. I was a counsel in the case Dr. Subramaniam Swamy versus Union of India. The debate was answered by the Supreme Court, and I think unfortunately answered by the Supreme Court by saying that criminal law, defamation law should exist. Now, if that law exists, which we all may not agree with, but none of us sitting here can change the law. That law has to be changed by the parliament if the court has upheld it. And who was in parliament? Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Whose party was in parliament? Mr. Rahul Gandhi's party. If Tehseen was facing this, I would defend him on public forum as well as in court pro bono. But I have no sympathy for Mr. Rahul Gandhi because when they were in power, they brought in 66A, in which you could be jailed for mere annoyance, for inconvenience. So when they were in power,
I argued that case. So if I may come in after Mr. Bhandari.
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah. So their mindset was to jail people for annoyance and inconvenience. So probably I am a person who believes in karma. It's just desserts for them. But on the last aspect of this, why they aren't challenging it, very often we have seen, because I said, I read it in papers that there's a Gujarati translation issue. We have daily seen without translation, when there is a disqualification or something in which you believe you have a good ground for interim relief, you challenge it immediately, even without a final order. And this case, just speaking legally, because he was facing disqualification, is a case where they could have argued that they need an urgent relief and they want to get an interim relief. So they're not doing it. is for them to defend. The law has operated not on the grounds of as law ought to be, but as law is,
let me ask you,
that is the decision.
Let me ask you, Ishkan Bhandari, similar comments were made in Ranchi by Rahul Gandhi, and he'd appealed to the Jharkhand High Court to quash a defamation case against him then. The court dismissed his petition, calling for the trial to proceed. Can therefore Rahul Gandhi argue that he's being singled out, there is no case against him, that the case is weak? And let me just also quickly read out the operative part of this order. And let me quote it. Also in the present case, according to the discussion in the above paragraphs, the case has not been filed only on the basis of the defamation of the Modi community, but also due to the pain caused to the petitioner. Moreover, the accused in his speech designated Sri Narendra Modi as a thief and compared him to the financial criminals who have hurt the Indian government like Nirav Modi, Lalit Modi, Mehul Choksi, Vijay Mallya, where he could have stopped. He could also have limited the speech to these people, but to intentionally insult all people with the surname Modi or those identified with Modi name, he specifically stated, why are all thieves nicknamed Modi? Therefore, the prosecution has proven its case without a doubt, and the final order is declared as follows. And of course, you know what the order was. So, Ishkan Bhandari, the Jharkhand High Court didn't give him relief. Why should we believe that Vikas Singh is right when he says that he'll get immediate relief from a higher court on this?
Rahul, I have learned in my experience not to crystal gaze into what a potential judgment of a higher court would be.
Okay.
We never know what will be. Yes, factually, I will say 2 years is a very tough sentence, and usually it will be very rare cases that somebody for defamation has been given 2 years. That's a fact. But the court justifies that decision. I think I read it somewhere, I've not read the order, where it was said that because you're a member of parliament, your words carry the maximum impact, etc., etc. But that's for him to challenge. I am not going to guess what the courts will do. Principally, I don't believe the law should exist. But again, we are dealing with law as it is. And as it is, two aspects: disqualification, the ordinance, the prevention, the precaution was torn by Rahul Gandhi. Laws on free speech, they brought in 66A. Probably they will learn the lesson, and I hope BJP also learns the lesson, and they do away with these laws. But I don't think, even if Congress comes back, they will do away with the law, because all governments, all parties like laws by which they can restrict Rahul Shivshankar, mine, or anybody else's speech.
Okay. Yes, very quickly, Karuna Nandi, before I open this up to Sanju Verma and Tehseen Poonawala. Yes.
There's much that Mr. Bhandari says that I agree with. For example, the 66A provision, which said criminalized annoyance and convenience, was a famous one. And it was brought in by the UPA. I and other counsel argued and succeeded in getting it set aside, right? However, the problem today is slightly different, which is that those laws have been taken and weaponized even further, and there are even more laws. For example, the IT rules 2021, there's just a variety of laws now. The UAPA, asking for the Bhuyan judgment to be set aside, which was a control on the UAPA. There's a large number of laws and cases in court that are restricting civil liberties much further. So I think there is a false equivalent. There's absolutely no doubt. And I was one of the people who, criticized the UPA in no uncertain measure and worked with others to get that repealed, right? Okay. But I do think that there is a false equivalent.
Okay. Let me ask Sanju Verma. Sanju Verma, the BJP believes that the reason why Rahul Gandhi hasn't gone up in appeal, or the party hasn't gone up in appeal on his behalf, is because they have a weak case. But let me also tell you that the Supreme Court in the Manoj Tiwari versus Manish Sisodia case of October 17, 2022 said that statement should be very specific and not very vague and general. So you're sort of seeming to suggest that, look, the case against Rahul Gandhi is very strong, even though some people on this panel, including Ishkaran to some degree, have argued that, look, you can't really suggest that he was being very specific. This was said in the hurly-burly of a campaign, etc., etc. So how do you respond to this?
Rahul, first and foremost, it's good to see you back on India Upfront.
Thank you.
I'll just get down to the moot point. The legal angle has been discussed threadbare. And let me be very honest, the topic of discussion is not whether Section 499 and Section 500 of the IPC or Section 199(1) and Section 199(4) of the CRPC, which deal with criminal defamation, ought to be there or ought not to be there. The fact is, today these sections exist. Now, against the backdrop of the fact that the criminal defamation sections under IPC and CRPC are bona fide, for anyone to sit here and say that, oh, you know, criminal defamation existing in today's times, in today's era when democracies are thriving, is a bit too much. I think that argument does not hold water, and I will tell you why. The very constitution which gives us the right to free speech under Article 19(1)(a) and under Article 19(1)(e), it is the very constitution which also says under Article 19(1)(c) that free speech is not absolute and is subject to reasonable restrictions of public order, morality, and health. So the first point I'm making is free speech does not exist in a vacuum, in isolation, and if somebody is saying anything to the contrary, they are living in la-la land. Point number 2, let us be very clear that the BJP, I don't understand why is it being dragged into this entire thing. The judgment was pronounced by the Surat District Court. The disqualification happened via the Lok Sabha Secretariat, via Clause 8.3 and Clause 8.4 of the Representation of Peoples Act 1951 and via Article 1021E of the Indian Constitution. So the second point is that constitutionally, what has happened with Rahul Gandhi with respect to disqualification merits no questioning. Point number 3, and the most important point. I have heard, you know, lawyers on this panel, and with no offense to none, saying that, you know, people have quoted Subramaniam Swamy versus the Union of India, the 2016 judgment. And I'm reading to you the most important operative part of that judgment. It is para 140, which says that the reputation of one person cannot be crucified at the altar of someone else's free speech. And para 143 and para 165 of the same case, Subramaniam Swamy versus Union of India, says very importantly that there is a very thin line between something that is gravely offensive or derogatory and something which is defamatory. And in the case of Rahul Gandhi, this is not about derogatory speech or offensive speech, it is defamatory, because I will tell you why. Give me 10 seconds. I've heard the recording umpteen times before coming on your show, because I know that you like the hard facts. He starts off like this, and when I say he, I mean Rahul Gandhi, the habitual offender, the repeat offender, the loose cannon who's made it a habit of getting away scot-free, but not this time. He says, मैं आपसे एक सवाल करना चाहता हूँ. This was on 13th April at Kolar near Bengaluru in Karnataka in the run-up to the Lok Sabha elections. What did he say? मैं आपसे एक सवाल करना चाहता हूँ. ये मोदी मोदी मोदी, he says thrice, ये मोदी मोदी मोदी, ये सब मोदी चोर क्यों होते हैं? नीरव मोदी, ललित मोदी, नरेंद्र मोदी, आप और थोड़ा खोज निकालिए, आपको और भी कई सारे मोदी मिलेंगे जो चोर हैं. Clearly, he was not talking about any particular individual. He bracketed the Prime Minister, the duly elected leader of the country, with two criminals. Point number 2, he sought to malign an entire community by clearly saying, ये सारे मोदी चोर क्यों होते हैं? And if you sit here and tell me this was about Rahul Gandhi saying something on the spur of the moment, then you are kidding yourself. And last but not the least, my final argument. Sometimes, you know, Rahul, on your debates, and who better than me to know this, because I'm somebody who speaks very passionately. I'm given to my moments of rage, my moments of passion, and, you know, sometimes discretion gets the better of us. But as people in public life, if you make a mistake once, it might be ignorance. You make it twice, it could be both ignorance and oversight. But if you do it repeatedly, then there is a mala fide intent. And as you and me speak today, there are 4 cases, and I've confirmed this. One pending in the Jharkhand court, one at the Mazda court in Mumbai, one in the Bhiwandi court in Maharashtra, and one in the Guwahati High Court. And all the cases against Rahul Gandhi are criminal defamation cases where he has either said RSS killed Mahatma Gandhi or that Gauri Lankesh was killed due to the RSS ideology. When asked to apologize, he did not. When asked to substantiate, he could not.
Okay, so let me get in.
Rahul Gandhi deserves no empathy or sympathy.
Okay. You made a very elaborate point. Let me bring in Tehseen Poonawalla. Mr. Poonawalla, this is where the BJP always falls back on the other cases and says, look, he's a habitual offender. And Kapil Komireddy, who is an author, he's no fan of the Prime Minister or the BJP, has come out and said that Rahul Gandhi is hoist on his own petard. He refers, of course, to the ordinance that was torn up and also of his repeated indiscretions, alleged indiscretions. So this was bound to sort of come back and hit him. And it has hit other politicians. They've been perhaps, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for Rahul Gandhi, but perhaps a little more repentant and have apologized. Rahul Gandhi hasn't.
Grateful for having me on the show, Rahul. Thank you so much. And thank you to Ishkaran. He agreed to fight anytime for me pro bono. But Ishkaran, the one time 66A was actually put on me. It was the BJP government. I don't know if Karuna will remember this, because she fought this case. The BJP government had defended 66A. Just to put that in context, I want to speak about this case. So while it was brought in by the UPA, the BJP did defend. I've come in after a long time.
Let him finish, please.
The BJP government actually defended 66A in the most honorable Supreme Court and said why it should be there. So, yeah, that's how it was. But thank you, Ishkaran. Look, Rahul, you can say that Rahul Gandhi's speech was perhaps should not have something he shouldn't have said. But that does not require somebody to be jailed. Now, let's go step by step because a lot has been said. The Representation of People Act, which envisages a punishment for somebody who's committed a criminal offense, the act itself, the intent of the act is for criminal offense, say a murder, a rape, somebody is robbed, something that is defamation. Defamation where in a political speech, Rahul, mind you, it wasn't a conversation, it wasn't he mocking somebody, it was a political speech in which he was taking a pot shot and a jibe at the Prime Minister. Nothing in our democracy stops us from taking a pot shot at a jibe at the Prime Minister. That speech made in Karnataka, a criminal defamation case has been filed in Surat and various other places. Now the rules require that the magistrate, at the very least, hold an inquiry or the CJM order an inquiry before the issuance of summons. That's point number one, because Mr. Rahul Gandhi is not a resident of Gujarat. So if at all a criminal defamation should have been tried in Karnataka where this speech was made, it cannot be tried it shouldn't have been tried in Surat. Number two, we've never heard, except for one other case in the history of this criminal defamation, of a maximum sentence. And everybody on this panel agrees that that's too harsh. Now let's go into the facts of how this case has gone about. And Rahul, you'll be astounded, and I attribute no motives to anybody. I bow before the magistrate of the Surat court. Rahul Gandhi makes his speech on 13th April 2019. This timeline is extremely important. And the complaint is filed on 16th April 2019. Sanju Verma ji rightly says Rahul ji has other issues or other complaints against him. And one of the important things in a criminal defamation is you go with clean hands. The person who's filed a complaint against Sri Rahul Gandhi ji does not have clean hands. Is an ex-BJP minister, an ex-BJP MLA. I have seen his speeches. He's made a number of speeches against the Congress, against Congress leaders, local and nationally. So he's not going with clean hands. That's point number one. 16th April 2019, he goes to court. 21st June 2021, Rahul Gandhi appears personally in Surat. In March 2022, this complainant appeals to the Surat court to summon Rahul Gandhi again. This is very important. The Surat court rejects it and asks him to go on with the trial and to prove what Rahul Gandhi said is defamatory. This man, instead of going on with the trial and proving what Rahul Gandhi is defamatory, moves the Gujarat High Court to get a stay on his own trial. Rahul, Karuna is here because Ishkaran's gone. Never have I ever seen a case where somebody who's filed a criminal defamation case wants the person to be summoned the second time. Few days later, on 8th March 2022, goes to the Gujarat High Court and gets a stay on his own case. That stay remains for over a year until the CJM is changed. I bow before the CJM, I attribute no motives. Suddenly this gentleman, the BJP MLA, goes back to the High Court, removes his own stay on the case. And then this case starts in the Surat court, Like I told you, the magistrate does not order an inquiry. Rahul Gandhi's lawyers challenged the jurisprudence, nor does he order an inquiry. Within a month, this trial is conducted and the orders are reserved and maximum sentence is given. I firmly believe that a lot about this case will come up in the High Court. To each current specific charges, what the Congress's legal strategies, I think that is best for the Congress to answer. They would have done better if they had a lawyer like you or Karuna out here. Perhaps that I think would for the Congress to answer. But what I'm trying to say is everything in this case, in my opinion, does not seem absolutely the way the law should follow.
Okay, but
and I do think the higher courts will look at it very strongly.
No, obviously, that would entail someone attributing motives to the manner in which this case has been pursued. I mean, come on.
Yes,
you may not
on the petitioner. The petitioner, yes.
Okay, so the court at the end of the day agrees. I mean, I understand that you'll also tell me that once the stay was sought and then he goes back to vacate the stay because he suddenly sees Rahul Gandhi making more statements. So there's that element also that suddenly this case is revived after. So I know that. I've been reading about this, but still coming back to the Jharkhand, for example, High Court, which did not stay this matter. Now, Rahul Gandhi had asked exactly the same case, almost the same comments have been made. So how do you explain that? And Jharkhand, for all practical purposes, at least at this moment, is not ruled by the BJP.
No, I will never say a court is motivated by the government that are in government. I will never say that. But I think it should be very worrying for us, Rahul, as people who do support free speech, that courts, increasingly the high courts, are clamping down on liberty. Look, Rahul, there are a lot of things I don't agree with Sanju, a lot of things. But if Sanju were to ever cross the line, I would be the first to defend a liberty. Liberty and taking away people's liberty, jailing them. Look, freedom of speech must always give you the power to err. However, some may think that is ridiculous.
I understand
even
the principle.
Even if I condemn the Prime Minister,
principle.
the strongest words.
I'm with you on the principle. So you're suggesting that the courts, that the courts are advancing.
A very worrying situation.
Okay, so the courts are advancing a very worrying situation. That in itself is a very worrying prospect because the Chief Justice who has just taken over said that the principal concern that he will sort of be led by is about liberty. He said this on record.
Just one last point.
One second.
One last point.
Okay, I actually needed to move on to the next debate, but very quickly, Tehseen, I just want to ask you, all this is very well. Why has the Congress party not gone up in appeal to defend their man?
Exactly.
What has happened here? I mean, this is 96 hours, Tehseen. Okay, I think we've lost him there.
Rahul, can I quickly come in for 10 seconds, please?
Rahul, just if I could come in for...
Okay, 1 second. Yes, Ishkan Bhandari, very quickly, and I need to move on to the other story, which is a very important one tonight. Yeah.
Two short points. Even if High Court gave a stay, Congress or Rahul Gandhi would have been there when the complainant went to get a stay. And when the stay was vacated, they could have again filed at that time also. So it is a very curious case. Why Congress was not challenging what were the obvious things to challenge and why they haven't challenged it up till now. Maybe Sanju Verma will answer it better. Maybe he doesn't want to contest elections. He wants to do Bharat Jodo Yatra.
Tehseen is back. Very quickly, Mr. Poonawala, why has the Congress party not filed an appeal? Very quickly.
They're filing an appeal tomorrow in the Sessions Court, which is where they have to go. They're going tomorrow on it. But I just want to make one political legal point. You see, the most honorable Supreme Court, in my case, the Tehseen Poonawala's Union of India, asked for a law on hate speech. Now, there is no one convicted for hate speech by this government. Azam Khan for a very ridiculous thing.
Look, I'm not going there because that's a very wide debate and that becomes an extremely... fine, we'll do that debate. We'll come to that.
People for political speaches.
No, that's fine.
Oh my God.
Tehseen, it cuts both ways. There are no angels sitting in the opposition. Let me tell you, I have suffered. Many have suffered. We've had a court. We've had a government in Tamil Nadu that has gone after journalists. So let's just call this off for now because we need to move on. Viewers, if Tehseen Poonawala is right, we will then hear the Congress's own defense of Rahul Gandhi tomorrow in a Sessions Court. Let's hope that Tehseen is right, because if he isn't, the question will constantly come back. Is this now becoming grist to gain sympathy for Rahul Gandhi? That's the political aspect of this. We've sort of touched upon the legalities here tonight. Viewers, we are moving on. Thank you very much, Karuna Nandi and Ishkan Bhandari and Vikas